In the outside-in approach, you are writing on a blank slate. You're creating something from scratch. In the inside-out approach, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You have this configuration already. In a way, you're aligning it to make sense. Now you're orienting it in the right direction, right?
Yes.
So you brought this. I find it interesting because in both these approaches, we have two different purposes for the brain, or two different goals. I feel like in the first outside-in approach, the goal of the brain is to navigate through the environment. In the second one, you mentioned
just absorb.
Just absorb as well. You mentioned in the inside-out approach, the first purpose of the brain is to maintain its own dynamic and then generate actions. This brings up the question, what is the ultimate purpose? What is the objective purpose of the brain?
There's no purpose. So this is the purpose is, let me use the metaphor of evolution. It is so easy to explain everything post hoc. So when I look at you and said, oh, this is a wonderful human being, how did it evolve? And then I can have a 1-minute movie showing that we started from a single cell organism or just viruses and so on, and then it goes in this direction. And everybody believes it, and this is what we teach. What is not shown is that at every single level, there is not an arrow from the simple to the more complex, but there are hundreds and thousands of arrows. And then the next level, thousands and thousands and thousands. But in retrospect, I can explain it this way. So the difference between intelligent design and evolution is exactly this nuance, this very little thing that in one case, it looks like there is a designer, and the other one is evolution. Now, same thing is about the purpose. Once you have a goal, evolution doesn't have goals, right? Once you have a goal, it looks like that now everything that happened was towards that particular goal. But the goal of an organism is to survive, and this this is a truism. Everybody knows that, and you can go to the next level about reproduction and so on and so on. But if that is not sufficient, then how else you can debate? And the answer is, my answer is that indeed the goal is to have the brain to be able to act upon the world, because this is the number one requirement to survive. If you are a simple organism and floating in the ocean and you have zero sensors, you can still survive because there may be food in abundance. The only need for sensors is to make the action more efficient to forage for food. So that's the evolutionary explanation for my inside out, that God didn't give, or nature didn't give us sensors and perfected it. And then from this perfection, it said, okay, now let's perfect the outcome, the output. But it started from the output, because this is how organisms try to survive. And then depending on what niche, which demands they have upon the organisms, you will add those perfection systems, such as the sensors, to make it better. If you use a metaphor of a robot, this is a nice clean apartment here, so maybe you clean it up, but you can have a Roomba, and the Roomba walks around. And what was a big discovery, this is called the slam in robotics, is that no matter how many new sensors you give, it doesn't make the robot work better. You can have 20 eyes. You've got 500 sound sensors, and so it didn't make it better. And the animal is assumed to have a representation of the room. The Roomba doesn't have a real representation of the room, yet it can navigate, because it learns the algorithm by itself, because it goes around, it looks at the consequences of its own actions. That's the primary thing, and that this is how it can survive. The first person who conceived this idea was a guy named Gray Walter from the Burnham Institute in Bristol, who has made his fame about the machina speculatrix. This was a turtle in the times of the vacuum tubes. So he built a system and said, how can I fool you, human being, that the system I built is a machine or a animal? And in a turtle, you don't see, you can make a little head and so on. And he said, well, if I show you that the actions have a purposeful goal. And the goal in this case to find electricity and charge, which would be like food.
Yeah.
Then you have an animal-like system. And this whole thing was all about making the robot, in this case, the turtle, move around until it stumbled into an electrical outlet. So these ideas have been conceived a long time ago back then and demonstrated already that, in fact, this machine is a useful machine if you start from the outside, from the inside, and you go and perfect the outside afterwards rather than the other way around.